What's up? What's up? What's up?
And we back with the. What was that?
That was the Martin. Remember?
That was. I didn't watch Martin. I was busy watching VeggieTales.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I am the center of the two of them. Forgive me.
No. I watched Martin. But my favorite character was
Brother Man.
No,
from the fifth floor?
No, not Brother Man. The when he dressed up like a woman.
Oh, Shanae.
Shanae.
Yes. I love Jerome. I said Jerome in the house. Sorry, people. Yes,
that is a throwback.
Yes,
that
man.
just aged both of us. Oh my God.
Yeah, man.
And we have left that sin in the past.
We have.
Right.
Yes, thank God for His grace and mercy. And
well, Jeff, we're in the middle of this 7 Things series.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
you
sir.
could call this a fun, crazy, random series.
It is.
Where it's just like, let's carry some of our conversations into this conversation. And so we're constantly trying to learn from each other, others as well, of course.
Yep.
So you always kind of sit down and go, okay, if I'm sitting with a leader, I'll go, okay, tell me what are you reading? Or what's the best piece of advice you ever got? Or, what have you learned from this experience or that experience? What we've tried to do is go, okay, what are 7 things that so we've already identified
our travel tips.
From 3 million miles. What's some wisdom from 3 million miles on the road and in the air? And then the second 7 things we did was
that was when we were talking about the things that we learned. The mistakes of our leadership.
7 failures. 7 failures.
That's the one where I really felt bad afterwards. I was like, dang, my stories were kind of worse than yours, bro. It was like, oh man, I'm so grateful for grace. And
amen. And so we want to drop 2 more. Two more 7 things in the 4-part series. We took a break to discuss what was going on with the war between Hamas and Israel. It's a war between Hamas and Israel, but Hezbollah to the north and Lebanon is also involved. And so if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you to go back and to listen to that. Not so much for the evaluation of what's happening, because by the time this airs, that's dated material.
Absolutely.
But we outlined a 5-fold plan for how to pray for not just for Israel, but yes, acknowledging we should pray for Jerusalem. The Bible calls us to pray for Jerusalem.
Right.
But as a Christian, what's a prayer guide for me? And that we outline that. So if that would be of any value to you, I'd encourage you to go back and really listen to that episode. Here's what I want us to do today, Jeff, because you and I are both nerds at heart.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would be...
That is true. That is so true.
We would make fun of ourselves if we were 17 years old. I mean, I'm a nerd, you're a nerd. I have to purge books out of my library every year because I just buy books. I love books.
My wife is on me always, man, about it. I have books everywhere, brother. It's really bad.
I don't have a man cave. I have a library. That's how bad it is for me. I know you're the same way.
Yes, absolutely, man.
Like it's like you could have a man cave, whatever that is, but why? Just give me some shelves.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, and when we moved to our new home, my wife was like, okay, listen, here's the rule. We're going to organize the garage. And so here she gave me a certain amount of books I can put in my home office. I have a certain amount here in my work office, but then she said, the rest we're going to categorize in the garage. I was like, the garage? So I like to read, walk around, highlight and stuff. So well, you can go to the garage, grab the book,
bring it in. It ain't that far of a walk.
Right. So man, and we always tell Brent, our students, that leaders are readers,
right?
And so it's important to continue to challenge yourself and just to engage, a lot of different materials as a leader.
And so we've together created a 7 books everybody should read list. But here's the skinny. We could do this list again next week, and it might change a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because it's so hard. If you love to read and you love to learn, and ideas are, I love what Abraham Lincoln said about his childhood education. When he didn't understand something, he would say, I would go on the hunt for an idea until at last I had caught it.
Yeah, that's good.
And so when you love that hunt for a good idea and going down the rabbit hole of a subject and learn everything you can about it, or it's really difficult for you to go, let me just go 7.
Yeah, right.
The list is only 7.
Yeah.
it's impossible.
Yeah. And it's so funny, man, is as we're talking about it, like there's so many books that we feel like are totally off the list. I mean, you can go history, leadership, Bible, stories or whatnot, and so there's so many topics. So 7's going to be hard. I'm just being honest.
So we're going to give you our best today, but if you were to ask us tomorrow, this list might not look the same. So that's full disclosure, okay?
Full disclosure.
All right, so let's just start. Yep. I'll start with one.
Okay.
I think one of the most important Christian books written in the last 100 years is my first one, and it's The Cross of Christ by John Stott. John Stott was really a leader in the evangelical movement for about 40-ish years.
Yeah.
Billy Graham said this when he went to England and preached a crusade. They said, "When are you coming back?" He said, "Why would I come back? John Stott's here."
Yeah.
So that's how revered he was as a leader, as a thought leader. He wrote a lot of books. I'm sure there's somebody steeped in different theological disciplines who would go, "Yeah, but what about this that Stott wrote?" I don't buy everything he wrote hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. But I will say this: The Cross of Christ is the greatest book written on the crucifixion that I have ever read. And Jeff, fun fact, I almost met the guy.
Really?
Our mutual friend, Dr. Graham Lacey, was very close to John Stott.
Okay.
And was working it out for me to get to meet one of my literary heroes.
Yeah.
And sadly, his health took a very sharp turn.
Yeah.
He had to be really, a home that was like a hospital, but it was kind of like a living facility as well. Yeah. So he could be monitored around the clock. Anyways, I remember I was in London when he passed away, and Graham actually called me, and he goes, "My dear brother, one of the great giants of our faith has gone to heaven," and I immediately knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
It was Stott. So, but The Cross of Christ, it's a big book. By that I mean there are lots of pages and lots of words and no pictures.
Right.
Well, there are some pictures. Yeah. But he writes in such a way. This was the strength of Stott, as in my opinion, as an author. He could wrestle with the profoundly complex theological nuances and issues, but he could do it with the sacred simplicities that the common man, like myself, could understand. Yeah. So Cross of Christ is number one on my list. What do you got?
Well, I'll stay in the vein of like a Christian book and Christian author. I remember, Brent, early on in ministry, we went through our church as a whole went through a great Bible study called Experiencing God. Yes. And man, that was one of the classic curriculums that we went through. And the author is Henry Blackaby. And I just feel like if you've been in the church world, most church evangelical communities, when they're doing like Sunday school or some type of leadership curriculum, Experiencing God is one of those.
Oh yeah, a staple.
Yeah, it's a staple. But the book that Henry Blackaby
it was wrote, a book, and then it became curriculum.
Yeah, but then one for the book that I wanted to highlight was Spiritual Leadership, and there he talked about how it's important that we make sure as leaders that we're moving on God's agenda. I think when you think about the leadership journey, and especially when we think about that in an evangelical movement or the Christian movement, like we want to make sure, yes, that we're operating, in our full capacity as leaders, but is it our agenda or God's agenda? And helping people. I love the book, how he was talking about how people can make a positive impact on their organizations or ministry when they really are moving on the agenda of God. And are we really, really submitting to the agenda of God? And I think that was one of the things that I really love about this book. And I remember reading this early on in my own ministry.
Oh, yeah.
You
have to have this one on your shelf.
Yeah, you have to. I think that's one of
you lived in Atlanta. He was based out of Atlanta for many, many years. Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
I did not. No, we actually, the one time I was actually in a conference, a conference in California, there for a student ministry conference, and he actually came to our church. And so
while you were gone?
While I was gone. Yeah. So we did. It was our Georgia Baptist Convention. Hosted an event at our church, and he was one of the keynote speakers there, and I was in California. And I was just like,
that's
thank
tough.
you. Yeah, so
I preached in front of him.
No way.
You want to talk about nervous? I had no idea I was about to preach in front of him.
Really?
So his son pastors in Atlanta, in I think it's First Baptist Jonesboro.
Oh,
or
really?
At least he did. He may still. I don't know. But they had me in for something. I can't remember. It was probably a youth Sunday.
Yeah.
We're going to tip our hat to the student. You know how it is. Anyways, we're the token youth preacher.
Yes.
And I love that role. I say that jokingly.
Yeah.
And so I asked him questions about his dad. And and as we were walking into the room, he goes, "My dad will be on the front row today." And I went,
"What?"
What do you... Henry Blackaby? He goes,
my gosh.
Yes, Dad will be on the front row.
Yeah.
And he was so kind and so gracious.
That's so cool.
And he talked to me afterwards, and he shook my hand and made an old person joke, he was just
so
trying to be that guy.
That's so good.
And I couldn't believe, I had to force myself not to look at the front row.
Right.
Because Henry Blackaby's right there.
Listen, man.
And I don't care if it's an elderly Henry Blackaby who's he had some he had some mental struggles with I think it was dementia or Alzheimer's.
It was dementia.
But it didn't matter. He's just this.
It's Henry Blackaby.
It's this guy,
right?
And so such a he was
That's
so kind
cool.
to me.
Yeah, listen,
so kind to me.
I would not have been able to preach in front of Henry Blackaby. I'm just being honest. I would probably have to look the other direction.
Yeah, I looked over him for sure.
Yeah. So.
Well, the next one on my list is one that is people are going to go, okay, of course that one has to be there. But it's Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Mm-hmm. And the reason
that's a good one.
The reason I like Mere Christianity by Lewis and the reason I think it's an essential is because if you know the context in which it was crafted and delivered, you go, wow, these thoughts had consequences. Mm-hmm. That's why I think studying historical context is so important. Lewis did not write a book. He drafted a series of BBC radio broadcasts that aired during World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you have the weight of consequence resting on your ideas, it's almost like those ideas get tried and tested by the fire, man. And so, he was awarded the highest medal a civilian could be awarded after the war was over. But it originally was a BBC broadcast delivered over, I think it was in a series, in a two-parter series. And the reality is he's weighing through these issues with the threat of annihilation.
Yeah.
It was a very real possibility.
Yeah.
As the Third Reich and the Nazi regime of Germany was making its way across Europe, and then the Battle of London was happening with a battle by air. But I like it when consequences are attached to ideas. Like, you didn't just theoretically come up with this.
Fair. That's very fair. Yeah.
So anyways, Mere Christianity for me. What's the next one on your list?
Okay, so this is more of a kind of a business/team book that I think is a throwback, and I'm just thinking about, as we're moving through our list, Brent, I'm thinking about the ones that really starting off in my own ministry and leadership journey had an impact on me. And so one is Patrick Lencioni's The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yeah.
And we're constantly, training our team, pouring into our team, and talking about that. But I think that's the 5 dysfunctions that Lencioni talks about, I think, are timeless. Because, you think about it, he talks about the absence of trust, the fear of conflict, the lack of commitment, the avoidance of accountability, and the inattention to details. And all of these dysfunctions that Patrick Lencioni talks about, I think, are so relevant even in today's time when it comes to being able to have some markers of how we can quantify health. And I think that's the thing that I appreciate about this particular book is if I'm trying to look at how do I look at my team and I have a brand new team, or I'm walking into a new ministry or a new opportunity of leadership, how do I really quantify the health of our particular team? And so I feel like this is a great book that gives you some practical, very simplistic ideas of being able to.
And it's not a long read either.
It's not a long read. It's it's an easy read too, and it's very practical, of like, hey, let's assess, in this place, is there an absence of trust? How do we handle conflict? Are we paying attention to the details? Are we really committed to the mission and vision of what we're called to do? So I just feel like, when you're talking about just a throwback is what I call it, of team management.
Yeah.
I think this book for me was one that has always been great. I mean, he has one, the ideal team meeting,
I think the 5 Dysfunctions was his first, right?
It was, yes.
There were a lot of kind of, I don't know if you'd call them spin-offs.
Yeah, The Advantage and some others, and so. But yeah, this is the one that really put him on the map.
Yeah,
and I think it's a great book. So that's second for me. What's your next one there?
This one is my left field one. This one's coming out of left field.
All right, I like that.
And it became my favorite years ago as I was, and I've taken every one of my children through this, but it's the it's the Jesus Storybook Bible. Every story whispers his name by Sally Lloyd-Jones. Okay. And I'm telling you, as an adult, if you've get it, it's worth reading.
Yeah.
And what she does so beautifully in that book is she is looking at the whole of Scripture through the idea of redemption and the main character being the Redeemer. And anyways, really I've read it multiple times because I've taken all of my children through it.
That's really good.
And anyways, let me give you a little sample. Okay. And this is kind of a sample of her writing and how she kind of weaves that redemption thread throughout the entirety of this book, which is really kind of like a children's Bible in one sense. Before they left the garden, God made clothes for his children to cover them. He gently clothed them and then sent them away on a long journey. Out of the garden, out of their home. Well, in another story, it would all be over, and that would have been the end. But not in this story. God loved his children too much to let the story end there. Even though he knew they would suffer, God had a plan, a magnificent dream. One day, he would get his children back. One day, he would make the world their perfect home again. And one day, he would wipe away every tear from their eyes. And she just has such a simple yet poetic way of writing and emphasizing redemption with every Bible story she kind of retells. And so my kids love it to the point where my 10-year-old Zion, I took him through it. He has his own Bible, a little Bible reading plan. But the other day, he's pulled that one out.
Wow.
I'm like, why are you reading that one, buddy?
Wow.
He's like, I just like the way it I can just see it. I think the way he said it is, I can see it in my head, Dad.
Yeah.
And so anyways, very, very powerful read, and I would encourage everybody.
That's a great one, man. That's
a little off the beaten trail.
That's really off of the beaten trail. My next one, man, and people will notice there's a little pattern with me. I am, Brent, one of the things that if I'm being honest with myself, I love organizational leadership stuff. I mean, leadership development, concepts, principles, theories. I mean, that's one of the things. And how do you take some of these concepts that we'll study in the academy or in social science and apply that through the lens of Scripture? We always tell students when we're kicking off, like say at SLU 101, that we're going to look at leadership through 2 very unique frameworks. Obviously, we're going to look at it through a theological framework because we want to see leadership through the lens of Scripture, but then also the theoretical framework of how do we take some leadership theories and apply them, kind of marry the two. And so James Kouze and Barry Posner, they wrote a book called The Leadership Challenge.
Oh gosh,
And what I love about this book is that they really provide kind of a playbook of a strategy playbook on how you can make some very extraordinary things happen within your leadership organization or culture. And I think that's the thing that I love about this book is that it really helps leaders kind of say, what are the essential strategies for influential leadership in an organization? In particular, if you're leading an organization through change. I know that many people really are always looking at like, what is a great book if I am trying to figure out how to navigate some organizational change within my ministry, or organization, nonprofit, for me, this is a very, very strong book, good book, great read. They just redid the book, and
it's gone through multiple editions.
And so I really love it because it really just provides a lot of, it's very robust in the research and insight.
Well, that's what I think we need to point out, Jeff. This is Kouze and Posner's The Leadership Challenge, which I think is almost 30 years old at this point, is in the last 50 years, probably the most extensive research by way of quantitative and qualitative research that has ever been done for a single volume book.
Yeah.
And so they're offering, hey, here's the 5 central components of great leadership.
Right.
Not based on theory.
Right.
Not based on some ideas we might have had. There's nothing subjective about this. This is scientifically proven.
Right.
And what's powerful about that book, Jeff, is it's the type of book, and this is how you know if a book had great impact.
Yeah.
It's the type of book that changed the way people talked in the marketplace.
Exactly.
If a book changes how you talk,
right,
it made a pretty big impact.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Brent, I think we have to, obviously you want to be careful as a Christian leader, the things that the literature in which you engage, but I think that there is something valuable in reading, if I could use the term secular or business book.
Sure.
I think there's something valuable that we, even in a Christian space, like a local church, a Christian school, there's something that we can learn from these business principles that are used to be that are leveraged in the marketplace.
Right.
And I think for me, that's what I'm always trying to gather from some of these business books. Like, how can I apply these same principles that have been bathed in research, and so they're tried and true with strategies, and how can we apply that?
In line with that, my last one is not a Christian book. So number 7. We're on number 7, right? Yeah, number 7. And this guy is a marketer. That's his discipline, his history, his expertise is in marketing, branding. A guy by the name of Seth Godin, one of the most prolific authors of our time.
Man.
But the book I'm going to say is not his newest book, and it's not even in the last, I think it's 10 plus years.
It's been at least 10 years. Yeah.
Because I read it in 2010, so at least 13 years.
Yeah.
But it's a book called Linchpin. Linchpin. And Linchpin by Seth Godin probably was one of the most impactful books I've read, if not the most impactful, on how to operate within an organizational culture and to make yourself indispensable to that culture.
Yeah.
And again, what Godin does is he has the ability to summarize a lot of research in his books that are trade books. He also does some research of his own, but he has the ability to summarize other research. For example, he was talking about people being creative inside a company or an organization in their workspace, and but Godin to point out how people struggle with creativity in the workplace. He turned and he goes, let me summarize a lot of, and he named all these different studies about on children and the way child's minds work, and then he made this statement, and I'm summarizing about a paragraph, but he said, every child is born an artist, and in the American educational system, we train it out of them between the 3rd and the 5th grade. And so he says, so he's connecting the dots and how. Well, I mean, that's a pretty big.
Yeah.
You got to have some kind of a mind to go, hey, how do I support this idea?
Right.
And root this idea in real research. And Godin does that for me. If you're on staff at SLU, I ask all our staff to read Linchpin by Seth Godin. It's what I'm looking for in a team member.
Yeah.
And just a great book.
Yeah.
7 books.
That was actually, fun fact, April 2011 was when it first came out.
April 2011.
Yep.
So I didn't read it in 2010.
Yes.
Not unless I got an advanced copy.
April 26th. There it is. The first copy.
All right.
First
so
edition.
I was doing my doctoral program between 2010 and 2013, and I just remember having to read it for a class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It must have been.
Well, you might have. I mean, it was, in 2011.
2011, 2012, something like that.
Yeah, so, yeah.
My bad.
No, you're good. No.
Want to fact check myself.
Yeah, listen, I love it. We always say, hey, we always love to fact check here.
Amen. Amen.
Man, 7 books, brother. That's good, man. And I mean, and listen, honestly, Brent, we could go 7 tomorrow, 7 more the next day.
Conversation could last a long time.
But what is the key that we're trying to, encourage all of you who are listening is, one, again, leaders are readers. Mm-hmm. And so make sure that you are always doing whatever you can to, one, expand your library so that you can make sure that you expand your depth of knowledge so that you can be the best version of yourself as a leader. Read every day. Mm-hmm.
Maxwell said, somebody asked John Maxwell, how do you write all these books? He goes, I read every day and I file every day. I read every day and I file. Figure out what that looks like for you.
Yeah.
But read every day.
Yep.
And let me say that in a different way. Learn every day.
Learn every day.
Learn every day. So anyway, 7 books.
Yeah. So, well, friends, as always, it is great having you listen and chime in. So we'd love for you to do all the things that you're supposed to do. What is it? We want you to like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, whatever it is. I never know, Brent.
Yeah.
Time to time, but just make sure that you share this podcast with your friends. And as always, you can follow me at I am Jeff Wallace, and you can find my brother
at Brent A. Crow.
Until next time, guys, we want you to make sure you're doing everything you can to be the best version of yourself. Until next time.
See you next time.
Peace.